Be turning chilly as we head our way into Thursday. It's likely we'll see some frost, particularly across Scotland, northern areas of England. But for all, it is going to be a chilly start. Many towns and cities around the mid-single figures. We could also see some mist and fog patches through the early hours. These should lift and clear away relatively quickly through the course of the morning. Still some scattered showers around coasts of Scotland, but otherwise a dry, bright start to the day, but feeling cold with some patchy frost. We'll start to see some thicker areas of cloud push their way into Northern Ireland, also elsewhere across western areas of Wales and southwest England. But for the large majority, it should be a dry but chilly start to the day. Now, some spells of sunshine during the first part of the morning, but some thicker cloud will edge its way in from the west, creating any sunshine more in the way of hazy spells of sunshine. And then through the course of the afternoon, we will see some outbreaks of rain start to push their way into Northern Ireland and some western areas of England, Wales and also Scotland, and some quite strong blustery winds associated with this, particularly around exposed coasts of Northern Ireland. Still on the chilly side, highs reaching around 14 to 15 degrees Celsius in the south. Now for Friday, Halloween, we'll see a mix of sunshine and showers, but some of these showers could be quite intense, merging into longer spells of rain as they push their way in from the west. A good chance we could see some hail and thunder associated with these, and it is set to be quite a blustery day for all, and that includes into the evening if you are out trick-or-treating, and then we'll see a continuation of the sunshine and showers over the weekend. That's it from me, bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Drivers on the A8 westbound at Bargeddy roundabout should proceed cautiously due to a road incident causing restrictions. The M25 anti-clockwise in Thurrock has one lane closed after a collision near junction 30. Congestion affects the M53 northbound between junctions 11 and 7. The A38 northbound between Burton upon Trent South and the junction with the A5 132 is congested. There are delays on the M25 anti-clockwise in Kent between junction 4 and 2. And on the trains, major disruptions affect Gatwick Express and Great Western Railway services between Haywards Heath and Redhill. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps four, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good evening to you and welcome to Farage with me tonight, your host, Martin Daubney. Coming up on tonight's show, Not only have the shocking details emerged of a Somali small boat migrant murdering a bank customer in Derby, but it has also emerged today that migrant sex offender Hadush Kabatu was paid £500 of your money to be deported after having been accidentally released by prison officers on Friday into the public for an astonishing 48 hours of liberty. Also,
we had a gimmick for a number of years called Rwanda.
So that just wasn't working in the slightest. It was a gimmick.
This is an expensive gimmick.
Well, a shock plot twist in this tale. The Labour government now is seeking a Rwanda-style plan of its own to solve the migrant crisis, after spending years and years lambasting the plan and repealing it upon entering government. And meanwhile...
Well, I do think that is a racist policy.
I believe that policy is racist.
It is racist.
Everything's racist, isn't it? As Reform UK reveals its legislation to officially withdraw from the ECHR, the former Deputy Prime Minister, Lord Heseltine, will be joining me in just a moment's time as he calls Reform UK fascists and declares we must stop Nigel Farage. And finally... Well, if that doesn't warm your cockles, you must be dead or woke. I'll be joined in the studio by the British Patriot developer who hoisted a 100-foot Union flag, as you can see on your screens, on an old council building after being forced to take down a much smaller one. It's a beautiful, beautiful sight. That's all to come on tonight's show. But first, here's your news headlines, and it's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good evening to you. Just coming up to 2 minutes past 7. The top story tonight, a 22-year-old man, Safi Dawood, has been charged with murder and attempted murder after a triple stabbing in Uxbridge that left dog walker Wayne Broadhurst dead. A 45-year-old man remains in hospital with life-changing injuries, and a 14-year-old boy was also stabbed, but he is expected to recover. The Home Office says Dawood, an Afghan national, arrived in the UK by lorry in 2020 and was then granted asylum 2 years later. Police say the attack is not being treated as terrorism as detectives investigate the motive. Breaking tonight, a major Microsoft outage has hit services worldwide, disrupting Heathrow Airport, NatWest, Asda and even Minecraft. The company says a global DNS issue has caused widespread problems across its Azure cloud platform and Microsoft 365 services like Outlook and Teams. Some UK users have also reported issues with the O2 network, while in the US, Starbucks is among the companies affected. Microsoft says it is rerouting traffic to restore services. A teenager has been found guilty of murdering 16-year-old Harry Pittman, who was stabbed in the neck during New Year's Eve celebrations on Primrose Hill in London. 18-year-old Aris Lloyd Hall lunged at Harry with a dagger as crowds gathered to watch the fireworks in what prosecutors called a moment where revelry turned to tragedy in the blink of an eye. Harry collapsed and died minutes before midnight. Lloyd Hall, who was 16 at the time, had claimed it was an accident but was found guilty of murder at the Old Bailey after a retrial. He'll be sentenced next month. Migrant sex offender Hadush Kabatu has been deported back to Ethiopia after being handed a £500 payment ahead of his removal. It's understood the money was offered because he threatened to disrupt the process, with officials stressing it was an operational decision by removal teams, not by ministers. Kabatu was forcibly deported overnight, escorted by 5 officers on the flight. He was rearrested in North London on Sunday after a manhunt, weeks after being convicted of sexually assaulting a schoolgirl and a woman in Epping. That was just days after arriving in the UK on a small boat. And that comes as a small boat migrant who stabbed a man to death inside a Derby High Street bank has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 25 years. 47-year-old Somali national Habi Nur pleaded guilty to murdering a 37-year-old Govinda Dani Johal at Derby Crown Court. Nur launched the random attack inside a Lloyds bank in May, just moments after angrily complaining about his refused asylum claim. Israel has said it's carried out a fresh strike on Gaza tonight, accusing Hamas of preparing, they say, an imminent terror attack. As fears grow, the fragile ceasefire there could collapse. The Israeli military says it hit a weapons storage site, claiming it was being used to plan an assault on IDF troops. It follows a night of heavy bombardment that reportedly killed more than 100 people, including dozens of children. That came just hours after the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered powerful strikes in response to what he called repeated Hamas violations. And in France, prosecutors say 2 men arrested over the Louvre Museum heist have partially admitted their involvement in the theft of priceless jewels. 4 masked thieves broke into the Paris Museum on the 19th of October, escaping with valuable gems and exposing major security failings at the world's most visited museum. At a press conference today, the Paris prosecutor confirmed the jewels have not yet been recovered and the investigation is continuing. Those are the headlines for now. More news at 8. Now, though, it's over to Martin.
Thank you, Sam, and welcome back to Farage. With me tonight, your host, Martin Dorby. Now, horrifying news emerged today of yet another small boat migrant criminal. This time, Somalian national Heseltine was today jailed for life with a minimum term of 25 years after pleading guilty to murdering 37-year-old Govinda Jahal in cold blood in an unprovoked attack. Nur, who had paid just over £350 to travel to the UK last year, was jailed at Derby Crown Court today. He was caught on multiple CCTV cameras attacking Mr Jahal with a kitchen knife. Meanwhile, yet more shocking revelations have emerged. In Epping, migrant sex attacker who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl just days after arriving in Britain. Not only has it been revealed that the offender was given £500 of taxpayers' money to leave, but in the last hour, in an interview with Sky News, Kabatu has claimed he tried to hand himself in to authorities a day before he was arrested, only to be ignored by police. Now, of course, we must take everything this man says with a huge pinch of sodium chloride. But after everything this man has done, many will see this not as justice, but as a final mockery of justice. And I'm joined now in the studio by my panel tonight. That's the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kwasi Kwarteng, and the former Labour Party Defence Secretary, Jeff Hoon. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Kwasi Kwarteng, let's start with you. The case of Hadush Kabatu, I think, exemplifies everything that's wrong with our country, with our legal system, and certainly the deportation system. How on earth can it be a good idea to pay £500 to a child sex offender to go back to Ethiopia, and that is equivalent to an entire year's salary? It makes a mockery of British justice, and it says we're a laughingstock.
So, look, I mean, I don't know the circumstances of the £500. I mean, that was most very odd. I think the debacle of his being released by mistake is something that really was very serious, that needs to be looked into. I'm not sure that anyone's been blamed for it, but I think people should be held responsible. I thought David Lammy was quite weak in the House of Commons when he answered questions on this. To his credit, he realised it was a huge mistake. And the government, I think, put their hands up and said, look, this is a disaster. And I'm very pleased that the man was deported quickly. But clearly, you know, the system isn't working. And I was very surprised to see him let out of prison. This £500, I've just heard about it maybe an hour or two ago. And I think that's completely the wrong message that's being sent. Now, I don't know who decided to give him the money. My understanding was that he was given the money as a kind of bribe for him not to apply to asylum, which is completely insane. He should have just been deported. He was a criminal, and he should have been deported. But I think, and lawyers will probably understand this better than I do, but I suspect that there's a process by which, if he says, OK, I'm an asylum seeker, we're mandated, we are forced to consider his application. And that's why they gave him the £500. It's completely topsy-turvy. It doesn't make any sense. But I think it was wrong to give him the money.
It's worth pointing out this £500 golden goodbye payment was also paid out by the previous Conservative government. Yeah. It's government policy. And I put it to you, it's an astonishing liberty. It's an abuse of the British taxpayer. And the 14-year-old girl whose life has been left completely traumatised by this monster, she didn't get a penny. Why on earth should child sex offenders get a single penny of British taxpayers' money?
All I can do Well, of course it has to stop. All I can do is try and explain, get into the kind of official mindset, the lawyerly way of thinking, whereby if he suddenly decides, having been convicted of this crime,
what does that say?
Then he's going to apply for asylum.
It says that we're a soft touch.
Yeah, and we're totally sort of overridden by bureaucracy, because what should happen, what common sense would dictate, is that he should be deported, no questions asked. But clearly there's a system where if he applies for asylum, we're duty-bound to process his application, which is insane.
Common sense is sadly lacking in this, and I think this is proof, is it not, Jeff Hoon, that the lunatics have finally taken over the asylum system. The notion that a single penny of British taxpayers' money should go to a monster like this is utterly grotesque.
I entirely understand why taxpayers would be outraged by this decision. But at the same time, I think Kwasi's made quite clear that this was a pragmatic decision taken by civil servants who, as I understand it, had no choice other than to allow him to proceed with a claim if he made one. And in those circumstances, from what I have read, it appears that that would then have cost the taxpayers still more money in cancelled flights and all sorts of difficulties. Now, I'm not condoning that decision at all, but what I am saying is that there was a pragmatic reason for this, and the reason was that the taxpayer would be even more out of pocket had he have stayed.
So what I don't understand, and you said it was the case when we were in power, and I don't remember any cases like this.
It's government policy,
maybe. But what that says to me is that there is it's all about process and procedure. So the fact that he can come here, commit a crime, be convicted of the crime, and then suddenly decide he's an asylum seeker means that we have to process the asylum claim. That's dotty, that's crazy. What should happen is, once he comes here and is convicted and then we want to deport him, we should be able to deport him without any questions asked. But clearly there's
we never can.
What?
But we can't. We never can.
But that's
the entire system isn't stacked in favour of those who've had their lives destroyed by these kind of.
What I don't like, I mean, I get people coming here for asylum, but if you come here as an illegal migrant and then you commit a crime, it seems absurd to me that suddenly you can put your hand up and say, actually, I'm here because I'm an asylum seeker. When that wasn't the first claim he made. That wasn't the claim he made when he first got here.
OK. Jeff Hoon, could I get your take on the fact that Sky News interviewed Hadesh Kabatu. He's in Ethiopia now, and he claims that he tried to hand himself in. Do you find it distasteful? I certainly do. GBNews would never show a clip of a convicted child sex offender. Sky News platformed him, and they gave him a sympathetic hearing. I think that's utterly repugnant. Why on earth is this man being given any media oxygen? He's a scumbag.
I totally agree, but it is an issue that I wanted to mention this evening. Most people rightly believe that when someone commits an offence who's from another country, has no right to be in this country, he should be deported. And the taxpayer should not have to bear the cost of keeping such a person, such a convicted criminal, in prison. The difficulty about that, however, is going to come when someone who's committed a very serious offence, like the man in Derby, committed murder, is deported and ends up, as this man has done in Ethiopia, walking away. When he got off that plane, he was a free man. The Ethiopian authorities said there was no reason to detain him. Now, that is something that we need to give serious thought to when we approve of deportation. Sure. Because we might deport someone to a country where they say, that's it, off you go.
Yeah, that's right. And what would stop him rocking up soon on another dinghy back into Britain?
Well, that's the fear. Yeah. And there's no real reason, there's no real way we can guarantee that won't happen.
And that's it. It's an endless conveyor belt of madness. Jeff Hoon, Kwasi Kwarteng, we have to leave it there for now. Now, thank you to my panel. Coming up in just a moment's time, do you remember when the Labour Party said this?
We had a gimmick for a number of years called Rwanda.
So that just wasn't working in the slightest. It was a gimmick.
This is an expensive gimmick.
Well, it was a gimmick in opposition, but now the Labour Party seem to have changed their minds because suddenly they want their own Rwanda-style returns deal after all. That's next.
want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Farage with me tonight, your host, Martin Dorby. Now, here's a little reminder what the Labour government thought about the Rwanda deportation plan.
We had a gimmick for a number of years called Rwanda.
So that just wasn't working in the slightest. It was a gimmick.
This is an expensive gimmick.
Well, it was a gimmick in opposition, but suddenly, in a dramatic U-turn, and having repealed the Tory plan and effectively decriminalised illegal migration, the Labour government is now seeking, you guessed it, a Rwanda-style migrant returns deal. The only catch, of course, is that while the original Rwanda plan, in theory, would have sent anyone who crossed the channel there, this proposed Labour deal will only apply to those who fail their asylum applications, which makes up, of course, about 50% of initial applications. I'm joined in the studio now by the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, as well as tonight's panel. Now, there's the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kwasi Kwarteng, and the former Labour Party Defence Secretary, Jeff Hoon. Gentlemen, welcome. Chris Philp, I'm going to start with you. Isn't it funny how suddenly, on cancelling Rwanda on day one, the Labour government, when reality bites, they suddenly realise it might have been a good idea after all?
Well, it shows how shockingly incompetent they are. They made a catastrophic mistake by cancelling that Rwanda scheme just days before the first plane was due to take off. I remember the first plane was due to take off on the 24th of July last year, just about 2 or 3 weeks after the election. One of the first things Starmer did was cancel it, claiming he had some replacement plan to smash the gangs. Well, that has been a catastrophic failure. Far from smashing the gangs, the number of illegal immigrants crossing the Channel in the first 9 months of this year have been the highest in history. Labour has completely lost control of our borders. Now, in my view, the Rwanda scheme would have worked because every single illegal immigrant crossing the Channel would have been very rapidly removed to Rwanda. And common sense tells you, if you're an illegal immigrant in France, you're not going to bother crossing the Channel if you know you're going to wind up rapidly in Rwanda. Something very similar worked in Greece about 12 or 13 years ago, and it's something very similar is working as we speak in the United States of America, where their illegal border crossings are down 90% by doing something very like the Rwanda plan. Now, what the Labour Party is floating is firstly an admission of their catastrophic failure and stupidity, but the watered-down version they're proposing won't really be effective because people that come here from nationalities very likely to get asylum, like Afghan or Syrian, for example, will get to stay. The only way a deterrent works is if pretty much everybody who crosses gets removed within a week. That is the Conservative plan. Now, to do that, you've got to come out of the ECHR, and that's why we announced a few weeks ago at our conference the next Conservative government will come out of the ECHR, and that means we can remove every illegal immigrant within a week of arrival. That will be a deterrent, and that will mean the crossings rapidly stop, as they did in Australia. It only took 2 or 3 months.
It's a fair point to point out, though, is it not, Chris Philp? The Rwanda plan was hardly a sort-away success. I mean, the flights were perpetually grounded. Nevertheless, at least Rwanda was on a plate. There's a tiny flaw with the plan from the Labour Party. Nobody's agreed to be a partner. Albania flatly refused in live press conference to Keir Starmer. This won't work. And the so-called Balkans nations, well, they've kicked Sir Keir Starmer in the Balkans.
They really have. I mean, he was humiliated in that press conference with Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama, and that is why their cancellation of the Rwanda scheme was so insane. It was there on a plate for them. All they had to do was let that first plane take off. We'd done all the difficult stuff. We'd gone through, like, several legal challenges. We'd passed a new Act of Parliament to fix the legal challenges. It was put on a plate for them, and what did Keir Starmer do? He cancelled it just a few days before it was due to start. It was insanity. And that's why we've got the worst ever small boat numbers in the first 9 months of this year so far, because they've made stupid choices. They've lost control of our borders.
Jeff Hoon, what do you make of this sudden awakening by Sir Keir Starmer? Reality bites in opposition. You can say everything's terrible. You can cancel the opposition's plans. Suddenly, we have effective, open borders. Sir Keir Starmer's looking a bit desperate.
Well, listening to Mr. Phil, very interesting. You would have the impression that he gives that this has been an outstanding success and benefited the British taxpayer. The Rwanda scheme cost hundreds of millions of pounds of British taxpayers' money. It managed to get rid of two people who volunteered to go. And that was the case. So what I hope is, if we are looking at something new, we're looking at something that's a bit more cost-effective than the hundreds of millions of pounds that the last Conservative government wasted on their Rwanda scheme.
Hang on a sec. The point is, the Rwanda scheme never actually started.
It was supposed to start.
Well, it was delayed by legal challenges. It never actually started. It was ready to go just after the election, after we'd effectively passed new laws to deal with those legal challenges, which took place over a couple of years. It didn't actually start. Now, had it started, in my view, it would have worked, because something very similar worked in Australia. I discussed that with former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott just a few weeks ago, and the cost, a few £100 million, is well worth it, because we are now spending £5 billion a year on the asylum system. So spending a few $100 million to save $5 billion is a good deal.
Chris, it's worth pointing out that Rishi Sunak called an early general election. So didn't give your own plan.
Well, that was a mistake.
That's right.
You know what, Martin? That was a mistake.
That was okay. You realise that. And secondly, you've been banging on about the ECHR for years. We never got round to doing it.
Yeah, we've got new leadership. Right, Kemi's never been Prime Minister. I've never been Home Secretary. We've got new leadership, and we've got a new policy, and that policy is to come out of the ECHR and remove every illegal immigrant within a week of arrival.
I mean, I supported the Rwanda plan, and I agree with Chris on it, but whatever else you say about it, it was designed to be a deterrent. The current system that we have, there's no deterrent. We're just a magnet for asylum seekers, and there's no real incentive for them not to come here.
The problem about this discussion, you know, is that we're discussing what to do with this long list of people that the Conservative government allowed to get in a queue for hearing their applications. The real solution to this problem is to make sure that we don't have a queue of people waiting to have their cases heard.
There's a more
that means speeding things up.
No.
The last Home Secretary announced a series of proposals to make sure that these matters were dealt with.
But you're answering a different question.
I disagree completely.
Can I just say
it's an important question.
No, it is an important question, but the fundamental fact remains we are a pull. Rwanda was a deterrent. We no longer have a deterrent. And that was what was very foolish about what the government did. They scrapped the Rwanda plan, OK, it had its faults. But what did they replace it with? Nothing.
Yeah. Look, I disagree with Jeff. So what Jeff's saying is make asylum decisions faster and the queue goes away. Well, sure, the queue goes away because everyone that turns up illegally gets given asylum. That will make the pull factor even worse. The way you stop people crossing the channel from France to the UK is to make sure pretty much the minute their feet touch dry land, they are removed somewhere else. They will stop attempting the crossing.
I think we need to deal with a few facts here. And one of the facts that you've just overlooked is that actually not everyone succeeds in an asylum claim. In fact, about half and half. So some are successful, some are not. And therefore, getting those cases...
About 75%.
It is.
It's a good shot. So
getting
75% odds, you take it.
Getting those cases heard and getting through the process is much more important than the debate we're having about where they should go.
It's not.
The reality is the law, not just the ECHR, but a whole set of international principles that we have adopted as a country, Conservative governments over generations have agreed to, means that we can't simply say to someone who claims asylum, you're pushed out of the country.
Yes,
that is not legally possible.
No, because the whole point about the thing was that, and the Australian case, that was, they would process the asylum claim. They'd still process it, but it wasn't in Australia. That was the point. That was the point, and you forget that. And I still go back to my original point about the deterrence. There is no deterrent for people to come to this country.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Chris, Phil, thank you very much, of course, to Jeff and Kwasi. Absolute pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed for joining me tonight on the show. Now, coming up in just a moment's time, remember this tactic from the Labour government?
Well, I do think that is a racist policy.
I believe that policy is racist.
It is racist.
Well, guess what? Now it's this time the turn of Lord Heseltine saying reform is fascist, and Nigel Farage must be stopped. I'll be joined by Lord Heseltine in just a moment's time. You would not want to miss it.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Generally brighter across many areas of Europe this week, though we can't rule out some rain, particularly across southwestern areas of Spain and also parts of Portugal, all down to an area of low pressure just to the west of the UK, swinging in some fronts at times. Also fairly showery across northern areas of Italy. Sardinia too could also see some spells of heavy showers, but elsewhere across the Mediterranean, pushing into Greece, it should be mostly dry and settled with some sunshine. Now there's still some showers in the forecast over the weekend, but otherwise feeling warm in any sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It'll be a chilly start as we head into tomorrow, soon turning wet and windy in the west with some hazy spells of sunshine elsewhere. Low pressure has very much been dominating our weather over the past few days, but slight ridge of high pressure means we'll see some slightly drier conditions as we progress through into the evening. Some showers will remain for a time, but these will soon ease away as we head our way towards dawn. Light winds, clear skies, so that means it is going to be turning chilly as we head our way into Thursday. It's likely we'll see some frost, particularly across Scotland, northern areas of England, but for all it is going to be a chilly start. Many towns and cities around the mid-single figures. We could also see some mist and fog patches through the early hours. These should lift and clear away relatively quickly through the course of the morning. Still some scattered showers around coasts of Scotland, but otherwise a dry, bright start to the day, but feeling cold with some patchy frost. We'll start to see some thicker areas of cloud push their way into Northern Ireland, also elsewhere across western areas of Wales and southwest England. But for the large majority, it should be a dry but chilly start to the day. Now some spells of sunshine during the first part of the morning, but some thicker cloud will edge its way in from the west, creating any sunshine more in the way of hazy spells of sunshine. And then through the course of the afternoon, we will see some outbreaks of rain start to push their way into Northern Ireland and some western areas of England, Wales and also Scotland, and some quite strong blustery winds associated with this, particularly around exposed coasts of Northern Ireland. Still on the chilly side, highs reaching around 14 to 15 degrees Celsius in the south. Now for Friday, Halloween, we'll see a mix of sunshine and showers, but some of these showers could be quite intense, merging into longer spells of rain as they push their way in from the west. A good chance we could see some hail and thunder associated with these, and it is set to be quite a blustery day for all, and that includes into the evening if you are out trick-or-treating, and then we'll see a continuation of the sunshine and showers over the weekend. That's it from me, bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Farage with me tonight, your host, Martin Dorman. Now, of course, it's the world's worst-kept secret. The latest tactic of the political left is to call Nigel Farage a racist.
Well, I do think that is a racist policy.
I believe that policy is racist.
It is racist.
Well, however, Reform UK's latest criticism this time has come from the former Tory grandee and the former Deputy Prime Minister, Lord Heseltine, who said in a Times interview, and I quote, "I want to expose Reform for what they are, the reincarnation of Oswald Mosley and his fascists in the 30s, when it was the Jews, and of Enoch Powell with immigrants in the 60s. Well, let's go now to the man of the moment, Lord Heseltine, who joins me. Very, very strong words there, Lord Heseltine. Welcome to Farage. With me tonight, your host, Martin Daubney. Nigel Farage is a fascist. You've dropped the F-bomb. Explain to us why.
I made a very clear point that we're seeing the same techniques to profile immigrants that we saw in the 1930s when Mosley used the same techniques against the Jews. We saw Enoch Powell's speech in 1968, if I remember correctly, which created the most dramatic tensions about immigration in this country. And I've watched Nigel Farage exploiting that basic human emotion as he sought to associate himself with, first of all, the classic white working class in this country. He then decided that farmers were being persecuted, so he suddenly started appearing in farming kit. And this guy is a populist of a very dangerous sort, and he is creating an atmosphere which is quite unlike the normal one that this country enjoys of tolerance and well-being towards one's neighbour. And I just find it extremely depressing.
Well, Michael Heseltine, a lot of people in the country, the majority of the electorate actually are very concerned about open borders. You don't seem to be that bothered about that. Do you think it's fascistic to care about sovereignty?
No, I am very concerned, and I think we have got to control our borders. But it's quite apparent that we're not doing that once the very large number of immigrants have got into the European continent. And I have not the slightest doubt that what we should be doing is to work with our European neighbours to police the frontiers of the European Union and to, at the same time, recognise what it is that is bringing this large number of immigrants to this country. And the fact of the matter is that our living standards are so much higher than theirs. Yeah, their countries are engulfed in some sort of civil war or strife.
But Lord Heseltine, if I may interject, I put it to you, it's not the United Kingdom's job to give everybody in the world who wants a better life a free meal ticket. And may I also compare, looking at Oswald Mosley, he himself tabled the notion of Europe a nation. Oswald Mosley himself wanted an integrated Europe as a single political entity. Well, that's what you want. I put it to you, Lord Heseltine, that you have an awful lot in common with Oswald Mosley.
Well, if you believe that, well, you believe anything.
Well, I do believe that. You share the same love of a single European unity, and it's completely failed.
Are you going to interrupt? Are you going to interrupt me every time I start speaking? Because that's part of the technique, you know, that the populist and the right wing use. They shout people down.
Well,
I actually rather believe listening to people. You see, you're off again. You've started again. And the idea that people like myself have anything to do with Oswald Mosley is just ludicrous. What we do believe is that after a century of war on the continent of Europe, we ought to try and find a way, well, Winston Churchill's famous words, we must create a kind of United States of Europe. And that was the atmosphere of the post-45 settlement. People wanted a condition in which they lived in peace. and that it must never break down into war again. I happen to believe that people like Churchill and Macmillan and Ted Heath and Margaret Thatcher were absolutely right in creating a framework of dialogue and law in Europe. But I'm also aware that, if I can just make this point, I'm also very aware that if you go to any aspect of our society here, the hospitals, the health service, the care homes, the social services, you'll find that the country is dependent upon immigrants who've come here to share in our living standards. And so stirring up the sort of hatreds that people like Farage specialise in is extremely immoral, in my view.
Okay, Lord Heseltine, if I may interject now, I just want to get to my next point, if I could. You mentioned there Margaret Thatcher, of course, a political titan, one of your huge political idols. I'd like to play you a clip now, if I could, an interview with Mark Thatcher, her son, recently. He talked about his mother's propensity to believe in Brexit. Let's take a look.
Was that she was deeply conscious of the fact that our parliament has an extraordinary history going back hundreds of years, and she firmly believed that our parliament in Westminster should be the one that actually governs the nation and not Brussels. Would my mother have voted to leave the EU? Yes, in my estimation.
So there you go, Lord Heseltine. Margaret Thatcher, a Brexiteer.
Yeah. Well, you know, I lived through all that. You will know that Margaret Thatcher was faced with the determination of France and Germany to create a single trading bloc, a single market, which would enable this country and our European neighbours to compete with China, America, and shortly India. And I happen to believe that Margaret Thatcher's greatest achievement was the fact that she sent Arthur Cockfield to negotiate Britain's integration into the single market.
But
which gave
Lord Heseltine, my point being, if I may interject without you taking offence, my point being here that Margaret Thatcher, according to her own son, has more in common with Nigel Farage on Europe than she does with you.
Yes, well, I heard her son say that. I was there when she created the single market, and I know what went wrong politically. The decision to create a code of law across a large market required a very large number of changes so that you coordinated the regulations of a dozen or more countries. And of course, that process led to decisions from the European market day after day to harmonise and regulise some aspect of our trading position.
OK, Lord Heseltine, I'm being told we have to move on. We've simply run out of time. But I want to thank you for your comments and your presence tonight. Thank you, Lord Heseltine.
You closed me down once again.
Well, I'm afraid we're running out of time. We can't be here all night. Thank you very much, Lord Heseltine. A pleasure to have your company. Back to my panel there, Lord Heseltine, laughing it off. I want to put it to you guys. Quite simply, Jeff Hoon, there we have it. When will the political left, and indeed Michael Heseltine, by the way, he might belong to the political left by the way he sounds. He sounds more like a Liberal Democrat than a Conservative. Separate point. When will they learn calling your opponents fascists and Nazis is a spent force and it's a completely and utterly offensive position to take?
Well, can I just comment on what we've just heard from Lord Heseltine? I was newly elected in 1992. Lord Heseltine was the Deputy Prime Minister. He represented a strain of conservative thinking that has disappeared from the Conservative Party. He was pro-European. He was a one-nation Tory, and at the time, that was the Conservative Party. They were absolutely centrist, concerned about a whole range of political issues that all but disappeared. We've just had the Shadow Home Secretary on your programme, and none of his views would have been acceptable to the government led by John Major with Deputy Prime Minister Lord Heseltine. Sure. And actually, if I can make this point about it, at the moment the Conservative Party are desperate to be Mark II the Reform Party.
Well, Labour are. Labour are the ones who are talking about...
Let me just finish, Kwasi.
No, I will.
Let me just finish. The reality is the electorate out there, when faced with the choice between the Mark I Reform Party, which is a Reform Party, and the Mark II Reform Party, will choose the Mark I. They won't vote for an ersatz Conservative Party that's trying to outdo Reform.
So, look, 2 points. Firstly, the political leader that's talking about Nigel Farage the most is the Prime Minister. And he's clearly trying to ape and copy a lot of what Reform are doing. And let's face it, this immigration issue, this asylum issue, is right at the top of people's concerns. And Labour are scrambling, as we saw earlier with their resurrection of a Rwanda plan. They're scrambling to keep up. The second thing, I think Jeff is right about the One Nation strand. But, you know, times have moved on. You know, he probably won't like to be reminded of this. 1992 was 33 years ago. I was still at school in 1992. Yeah. That was a different era. And of course, you know, things have evolved, times have changed, and politics changes with those times.
Except perhaps Lord Heseltine's views don't. Kwasi Kwarteng, Jeff Hoon, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Now, coming up in just a moment's time, get ready for this magnificent patriotic moment. Now, that doesn't warm your cockles, you're either dead or a liberal. And I'll be joined in the studio by the Patriots who hoisted that 100-foot flag in Chesterfield in protest against the local woke council. That's next.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. I'm going to do now, they are throwing things up the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community.
So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, your host tonight, Martin Dorby. Now, a defiant property boss, he was told to take down a small union flag by the local council. Well, he's responded in spectacular fashion by instead draping a 100-foot megalith across the entire front of a former council building. Let's just take a little look at this and feel your heart rise. An absolute beautiful monster. And the property developer James Holmes, he spent $2.5 grand on the flag designed to inspire pride in the positive things Britain has brought to the world.
How have we become to a point where so many people are ashamed of our flag, ashamed of the Union flag, all the great things that Britain has brought to the world, particularly from such a small island?
Utterly joyous, and I'm delighted to be joined by the man of the moment himself, that flag-wielding giant of a man, James Holmes, who's sitting in the studio with me, of course, with my panel. That's the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kwasi Kwarteng, and the former Labour Party Defence Secretary, Jeff Hoon. But first, James Holmes, let's get you. Let's start at the beginning. So you own this building.
I do.
And you put a small flag outside. The council got the hump. What happened next?
Well, we say small flag. It was 30 feet across. 24 feet high, but so I suppose it's relative. But it had a brand through the middle of it, or a campaign really, says flytheflag.uk.
Yeah.
Because if we just put up a Union flag, then people would just go, a Union flag. Oh, by the way, I'm just going to correct that. Everybody tries to pull you up, it's not a Union Jack. Well, I decided we all know it better as the Union Jack. No other country has got a Union Jack. They've got a flag of the country. So I'm no longer going to accept people trying to pull us up for that.
Yep.
But anyway, so we put it on there so that people would identify that we're trying to do something, not just another flag.
Yeah.
So the council didn't like that because they said it's not a flag, it's an advertisement. Well, I'm not too bothered. There was a bit of a mistake on the proofing as well, which is ironic because the company that manufactured it was actually based in Clown in Chesterfield, UK printing company, and they made a mistake and I didn't really spot it because I was out of the country.
All right.
So that also caused a problem. But I thought, well, I'm not just going to take it down because of that. I own the building. Let's just see what happens. I'm prepared to fight with the council because out of principle. It's funny how if you telephone the council, you'll spend longer waiting in their queuing system than what it took for 2 council officers to come from the town hall, which is 100 metres away, there. That flag had barely rolled down to the bottom before 2 council officers were stood there. It takes you longer than that to get through the queuing system. So I thought, no, out of principle, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to leave it up and let's if you want to take us to court, if you want to waste taxpayers' money, I'll fight it out of principle.
So Chesterfield councillors, they clutched their pearls, but what's been the reaction in the community?
I would say 98, 99% positive. If you stand near there, even on this video like you were seeing then, people going past, popping the router, thumbs up, tens of thousands of messages and stuff. I think now, since the new one's gone up, of the various different videos and images that have been up, we're nearly 3 million views, which is an estimate, but 99%, you're always going to get some dissenters. Some people want to call it racist, fascist, I think it's just the easy tropes to chuck out there that they've chucked out so much that they've lost all their meaning, really. I mean, somebody even vandalised the building with racist, fascist and stuff like that. I've even been called a nonce, surprisingly. I don't know where that one kind of comes from.
Yeah, I need to apologise for that word. It is a banned word on the channel. But anyway, I understand you were called that. Can I get to my panel in now? Let's get you, Jeff Hoon. Suddenly, Sir Keir Starmer is a born-again patriot. Your boss, Tony Blair, draped himself in the flag. Of course, during the Britpop years, everybody wanted to be proudly British. But why is it now that we hear, I mean, Lord Heseltine started the ball rolling earlier on in the show saying everyone who basically is a patriot is a fascist. What is it about this sense that the flag is not something to be proud of, but something to be ashamed of. And it has to be said that typically comes from the Liberal Labour Party left.
Well, I was born and brought up in Derbyshire, and this flag is in Derbyshire. I can't see the slightest problem about having a huge flag, especially at this time of remembrance as we move towards Remembrance Day. I think it's vitally important that people remember the contribution that our armed forces have made over many generations, and seeing the flag in that way, I think, reminds people of that. I think it's really important that that should happen. So I have no problem with this at all.
Look, I totally agree with Jeff, but I think there's a broader question here. Why do some people say that this is fascist? And I think if we interrogate that, it is elements of the far left, I would call it. And it shows what a divided country we are, because many years ago, no one had a problem with the Union Jack 20, 30 years ago. I mean, I'm old enough just to remember that awful war, the Falklands War, and you saw Union Jacks all over the place. And that was an expression of patriotism. But now, many people want to demonise it. I don't think they're a majority. I think the vast majority would agree with the position. I still can't believe how big that flag was. I would love to know more about how you source that. But we are a more divided society now, and regrettably, some people think it's fascist.
And I wonder, James Holmes, if I could put that point to you, like we seem to be having the stuffing knocked out of us in terms of our national pride. The Raise the Colours lads, they're pals of mine. They work across the West Midlands. They're mainly in the Brummie area, and they tell me time after time after time, the kind of people that complain to him, they're not ethnic minorities. It tends to be white, liberal, middle-class people with the problem. Have you found that too?
Completely agree. I mean, because of my car is all branded up as well, and I'll put the window down and say to people, well, what do you think to the flag? The car is a giant, the car's grey, so it's black Union flag parts coming together, a flag pole on the boot, so it gives me a lot of chance to engage with people like this. And overwhelmingly, people of all creeds and colours and cultures, thumbs up, pap in the router. Just 2 days ago, there was a guy like he was freaking out in his van, and he was a coloured guy, and I stopped and dropped the window. I went, "Is there a problem with the flag?" He went, "No, I love it." He said, "But look at them two over there freaking out over it." And I looked over, and exactly like you just said, it's the kind of I don't want to say that the middle class, because they're still going to work, because you see them when I'm taking the kids to school, but the kind of ne'er-do-wells, virtue signalling, look how great I am, when in reality, the people that they are saying are offended by it are not offended. I've got a video I've got a recording of a lady that rang up complaining to me how she was shook at walking past it. Not so much for her, because she works in the NHS and she's got a good job, Caucasian, but for the non-white people that work in the NHS. Oh, really? Well, why did they choose to come to this country if they felt the flag of this country that they've aspired to get into is a racist flag? This is just typical of where we are now with this woke mind virus.
And that's the point, Jeff, whom people are being united by this flag. You know, you're saying quite clear there, James Holmes, people from ethnic minorities have got no problem. It's the white liberals who've got the beef with it.
Well, except that, I think James has just demonstrated that the overwhelming majority of people in Derbyshire, right across the country, support this. But I'm afraid, Martin, I don't agree with your description. It's a handful of people who take the view that you take, and James has just confirmed that.
No, not me. He's describing.
The point you're making is that somehow there's a huge woke constituency out there that's preventing people like James from doing it.
Let's be straightforward about this. You know that whatever you want to call, however you want to call them, the North London lawyer gang, the liberal elite, there are a section of people at your party who have deep objection to that.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Kwasi Kwarteng, Jeff Hoon, and, of course, my studio guest, James Holmes, absolute legend, the biggest flag in Britain. Coming up next, State of the Nation, tonight with Charlie Peters. Going to be magnificent. Stick around for that. First of all, though, here's your weather forecast.
3 minutes.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It'll be a chilly start as we head into tomorrow, soon turning wet and windy in the west with some hazy spells of sunshine elsewhere. Low pressure has very much been dominating our weather over the past few days, but slight ridge of high pressure means we'll see some slightly drier conditions as we progress through into the evening. Some showers will remain for a time, but these will soon ease away as we head our way towards dawn. Light winds, clear skies, so that means it is going to be turning chilly as we head our way into Thursday. It's likely we'll see some frost, particularly across Scotland, northern areas of England, but for all it is going to be a chilly start. Many towns and cities around the mid-single figures. We could also see some mist and fog patches through the early hours. These should lift and clear away relatively quickly through the course of the morning. Still some scattered showers around coasts of Scotland, but otherwise a dry, bright start to the day, but feeling cold with some patchy frost. We'll start to see some thicker areas of cloud push their way into Northern Ireland, also elsewhere across western areas of Wales and southwest England. But for the large majority, it should be a dry,